Okay, we are back today on Violent Money TV, joined by Ben the Bane Davis. Now, Ben, the last time that you were on here, not the last time I spoke to you in person, even, but the last time you did an interview with myself, we spoke on the scrap, and I was like, this
Mm.
is a crazy way to start an interview saying you are going to be boxing the son of Anderson Silva. And somehow you have taken it to another level for this one. Because to say that you are going to be boxing, not just boxing, bare knuckle boxing, a fellow member of the MMA media, the Mac Life's Oscar Willis in BKFC, in a bullfighting arena in Spain. I don't know how many more levels that you can go to for it to get even crazier. Um, and I don't know where to start with that. So I think we should just start at the very start of how this
Yep.
all came together because yeah, that was a surprise, man, to see that one.
Surprised me as well. And to your point, I don't know if there's any escalations I can get. This could very well be the ceiling of crazy shit that Ben the Bane Davis can get up to. But the truth of the origin of this BKFC bout is Oscar Willis himself. 2 months ago, he called me and said, well, now that Connor is involved with the organization, they want greater push on the platforms a la the Mac Life. And Oscar's response to them was, well, if I get a fight with you, that would justify increased exposure. That would really warrant him pushing and publicizing it more so than just the usual stuff. And they loved the idea. The only question they had for Oscar was, well, who are you going to fight? And there is only one name that makes sense. And that, of course, is the Bane himself.
As I mentioned to you before we start recording, I mean, Oscar picked the right person to call because I think you might be the only person crazy enough, like him, to have crazy schedules and still do this. I mean, you did say that you've kind of changed your schedule up a little bit to accommodate for this one, but either way,
Yeah.
having any kind of other priorities at the same time as doing this is mental all by itself.
It really is a struggle, and that is what made the matchup so appealing. And Oscar and I are really good buddies. I have so much love for the guy, and we spoke candidly about the obligations that him and I have leading up to this fight. I was really logged on the back end, so he's been training for a period of time now, doing 2 days up at Extreme Couture, I believe, and I was in Washington, D.C. for PFL. Then I had to be in Richmond, Virginia for APFC. Then I did a week in Dublin, Ireland for X Series 17. So I was logged on the back end while he's been training. But leading up to the fight, he's got a shit ton of travel. So it's kind of like we're reversing schedules and we'll see what happens on October 12th. But, I have said several times before that I am game. And maybe that's because I'm stupid, right? But I really do have that dog mentality. And even if I had more shows in the next month, I still would have made this happen.
I guess that's the positive in going up against another guy that is part of the MMA media is like he is one of the like of all the other people that you've fought in various. I saw a comment by the way for when this fight was announced that you're fighting in different martial arts and collecting the Infinity Stones, which I thought was spot on.
Right
But
there, they're all on there.
of all the opponents you could fight, Oscar is one of the only people on the planet that understands the MMA schedule. Right, there is no off season, and so you are traveling every single week to do this. And so in that way, like you said, there are times where he's going to be able to train and you can't, but at the same time, it works both ways. So I guess that's a benefit in fighting another media guy.
Completely, completely. And I think it's a testament to what the media side of mixed martial arts can and should do. I do firmly believe that everybody that wants to call themselves a reporter or pretend to be a journalist, go out there and walk it as much as you talk it. You know what I mean? While we're all young, there is quite literally no risk. If you lose, fantastic. Get the fuck back up. I lost twice back to back at the beginning of this dumb journey, right? And did that deter me? Did that stop me? Did that affect anything? No. So for anyone out there that is wanting to be involved on the opposite side of the coin, do yourself a favor. Get training as much as you can, right? Take a local fight. It doesn't have to be on a big platform, but I think we all owe it to the athletes that, hey, if we want to cover this and create content around the people that are inside the UFC, PFL, other organizations, we should maybe put some skin in the game as well.
Yeah, but the interesting thing with this one is that Oscar has already done that as well, right? Like I'm sure
Hmm.
that you saw. I remember it being a big deal when I saw him go and have an MMA fight that was put out on YouTube and stuff. Like, and then you've obviously gone and done the same things. Have you watched that fight beforehand or since this fight was put together?
I watched it about a week and a half ago. So we've been working on this deal for 2 months. I think six weeks to 8 weeks, and I hadn't watched his fight in a minute, and so I watched it back and was impressed. Kid's tough. He is a very very durable guy. I was impressed by what he was able to reach inside himself and pull out to get that win, and very proud of him. I mean, I again was rooting for him. I remember during that time period, and it was great to see it. But with respect, it's not going to be better than the Bane.
I'm sure you will have seen the clip that he put out of him talking to Dan Hooker and Israel Adesanya about this,
Hmm.
where Dan Hooker says that he's going to be there and be in his corner, which would be amazing if it does happen. Do you know who you've got planned for your corner in terms of the team that you're working for with this one?
Completely. Hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've got Kevin Natividad and my man Billy O'Lunson that will be the crew, hopefully for Marbella, Spain. That's what I had for Karate Combat. We had a really good flow and I'd say work synergy during the lead up to Most Wanted, and I felt like replicating that was the smartest choice. Kevin, former UFC fighter, very good buddy of mine, head coach, and I trust his instruction. I trust the game plan that we're going to be creating. And with Billy, great sparring partner, a wonderful dude to sharpen the tools alongside. So it's not Dan Hooker. It's not Craig Jones that I think is also going to be representing Oscar. But at the same time, you can have anybody that's cornering you. It doesn't really matter. It's what's inside the ring. So that's just what's important.
Well, like you've kind of got the benefit of whilst Oscar has fought before, that karate combat fight wasn't that long ago, and so you've got the experience of actually, having a working relationship with this team.
Hmm.
Like you said, you know that the synergy and everything already works. What was that experience like fighting in karate combat? Because I'm always stunned by those shows. They always fascinate me.
It might be the most stylized combat sports production on the planet. They
Hmm.
pull out all of the bells and whistles to make it visually as dynamic and engaging as possible, which is great. Fighting inside the pit was awesome. I think it's a really cool environment. It's so different from a cage, a ring, the offensive and defensive nuances that are created because of the pit, the walls, the size. It's interesting. It's hard, right, to corner somebody because they can just fucking leap up on the pit wall, and then you're like, well, there goes all of the work that I put in to trap them. So it was fun. I did have an offer to fight again on their Singapore show. They reached out. They wanted to get something together, but this deal was already kind of in place, and respectfully, the purse that they were coming at me with was a little bit lower than what I was asking for, and I'm like, listen, if you want me back, you're gonna have to play ball a little bit more this time.
Yeah, well, as much as I love Karate Combat and they're owned by some wealthy people, they don't have that Conor McGregor money that BKFC now have. So the Bane is following the money, as you would expect. Um, the last thing to kind of touch on, away from the fight, we spoke already a little bit about your recent trip to Ireland, where you were
Mhm.
doing play by play for the first time, right? For the Misfits shows.
It was the first time that I got the chance to do play-by-play for one of the X Series events. I've been floating between color commentary, on air, presenting post-fight interviews since the Leeds event in January. And, Todd had an existing commitment. There was the spot that had opened up, and finally got the chance to execute that role, which is, again, my bread and butter. I would really describe myself more as a play-by-play than anything else. I think it's inappropriate for me to ever be suggesting I'm a color commentator. I have that self-awareness that I'm not the best fit for that role. I can do it, to a varying degree of success, but play-by-play is where I've cut the teeth, and I think it went pretty well on Saturday night.
The final thing, this just popped into my head when you were saying it because I hadn't thought about this until now.
Mm,
I suppose this is a little bit behind the scenes, but when I was speaking to you out in Washington, you were asking because coming over to Ireland, you knew that obviously KSI was supposed to fight on the card and he was going to be doing a performance instead. And you kind of were asking me and a couple of the other UK guys were there, like, just how big is he, in the UK? Because it's completely different in the US. You
Yeah.
know, I've literally grown up with him being famous. It's kind of crazy. What was it like to be in and around an Irish crowd who, again, I imagine will have grown up watching KSI?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. I told Mams Taylor this early in the fight, or excuse me, early during the event. I was like, if we could just come back to the Three Arena every single month and do shows there, that'd be pretty fantastic. The Irish crowd's amazing. The energy that they brought was unparalleled. That boosted and buoyed the on-air crew. I think that lifted up the fighters and their performance and what they were trying to give. It was just a unreal atmosphere, and it was packed immediately, right? Because we did the split up KSI segments. So he fought, or excuse me, he performed after the second fight, right? After the kickoffs were done. And so like an hour into the event, we already had 10, 11,000 people in the Three Arena. And then they stayed there, thankfully, throughout the entirety of the main card. And then we're absolutely enthralled by his performance following the main event. So it was just a wonderful energy and a event that I will truly remember and cherish for as long as I work.
Well, I am excited to see what's next for you, both commentary wise, but of course, fight wise as well. This bare knuckle bout against Oscar Willis is, I think, like one of the must see fights for the rest of the year, especially for, I think, for people who know, you know, people who are involved in like the MMA chat online. This is like one of those fights where BKFC have had a fair few of them where they get announced and it's like that week, you know, people are going to be talking about BKFC. They've managed to put a fight together that's going to break through. And I think this is going to do that, which is crazy considering like just how this has come together. Like it's a mental thing to describe to somebody who doesn't know combat sports. Like this wouldn't
Yeah.
work in any other thing, in any other
No.
sporting arena. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the beauty of combat sports. I think that's the genius nature of, Dave Feldman and everybody that's at BKFCs. They recognize these opportunities and they will pull the trigger on them. When Bryce Hall competed against, the Cup man, Gino Perez, I forget his name. It was a huge event. And then when Bryce won, granted it was maybe an injury on the Cup man's part, but it was a big deal. And so hopefully we can add to that. And it's just an honor to be able to get inside there and do my best. Right, there will be a lot of talk and conversation, but the fight needs to deliver as well. I love Oscar to death, and I know that he's got nothing but good things towards me, but we are going to throw down, and this will be an entertaining scrap for as long as it lasts. I could get knocked out by the first punch. That is a reality here. You know what I mean? So hopefully the fight lives up to it, and we can just perform to the best of our abilities and make good on all of that hype that hopefully we can create in the next month.
Yeah, I think that's something that maybe I will close this interview out on because to really stress this, if I saw that you were going to be having an MMA fight with Oscar, I would say, wow, that's crazy. The fact that it's bare knuckle, like we said right at the start, takes it to another level that I
Yeah.
didn't know was possible. Like not only are you having a fight against another guy from the MMA media, it's in bare knuckle. So it literally couldn't get any more
Can't get
whatever.
crazier.
Yeah,
Can't get more hardcore.
exactly. And thank you so much for your time, man. I know you're a busy guy as always, and yeah, I look forward to this fight, and I'm sure I'll speak to you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kyle.